I'm really excited to host the World Alzheimer's Day 2024 at the Alliance Francaise, New Delhi. I'm Archana, I'm the founder of Samvedna Care. There are 8.8 million people in India suffering from dementia. The need of the hour is to encourage early detection and support the families. So we are here today to create awareness and help families and caregivers so that their loved ones can lead a better life.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jayashree and I'm the co-founder of Samvedna and Dementia Expert. We're celebrating World Alzheimer's Day today with a special screening of the film Life Flows On by Mr. Vishal Nityanand at Alliance Francaise. And we're really excited about raising awareness to break the barriers of stigma around a diagnosis of dementia, and we're really looking forward to encouraging people to seek help and support. Samvedna is an organization which has been providing caregivers and people living with dementia support for dementia since 2013. And if you want to know more about what we do check us out.
Yes, Samit. Wait. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Wait.
Hello sir, how are you?
Wait. Bye.
Mostly accidental. I didn't know very much about the movie and I just happened to see it at the India International Center because I was a member. But later on, the movie was so poignant and it touched a very, empathetic chord in my mind. Dementia is no longer, something strange or something, about everybody in their family have elderly relatives at some time or the other. You have to grapple with it. I'm so glad you have this beautiful organization to take care of it and to give them home support, because I think an institution itself sounds like a good word. As far as possible, they should have an environment with which they're familiar. And I'm so glad you're doing this, engaged in this, and I'm very, very happy to support you in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Meenakshi, clinical psychologist with Samvedna Care, and today we are celebrating Alzheimer's Day, and it's not just about people who are affected by this illness. We are not only talking about people who have dementia, but we are also talking about people who are caregivers of people with dementia. It's a very, very difficult task to do that, and we as a community need to provide them all kinds of support. We at Samvedna Care are providing people who are caregivers with such an opportunity, and we are empowering them to live quality lives.
So I am here for Samvedna today, and I have been a caregiver for almost 12 years to my father who had Alzheimer's, and then to my mother-in-law who had Parkinson-related dementia. So I have undertaken this journey with them, and it has been a very overwhelming journey. I'm still coming out of it, and I would like to make the caregivers visible, because caregiver support is absolutely absent and missing. There is no applause for invisible caregivers, and also there is no infrastructural financial support for them. They lose out on many dimensions of life, including their vocation, their profession, their time, and everything possible. So caregivers perhaps have a more difficult journey because there is nobody to support them. Patients have caregivers to support them, but caregivers are very alone in their journey. So lend a hand wherever you can to any caregiver friend that you know of. Thank you so much.
Great.
I am Dr. Professor Rekha Singhal, and I feel that this event is very useful for all those who are the senior citizens, and this problem of memory loss is very common, and people suffer a lot on account of this. Now, if this event can help all those who have come over here either for themselves or for others, I think it is a good thing and great thing.
Yeah, hi, my name is Trinetra. I'm here at the Alliance Francaise, Delhi, and this is a program by Samvedna on dementia. And my mother recently had a severe brain stroke, and as a fallout of which she has lost a bit of her memory and she's not able to comprehend things properly. So I'm under the impression that she may lose memory even further in the future, and I'm here to learn about the cure and the remedies and to find health groups. Thank you.
So we'll just start in a couple of minutes. We're just waiting for Dr. Anshu to come. A very warm good evening to everyone. Thank you for gracing your presence for this special day to mark World Alzheimer's Day. As founder and managing director of Samvedna Senior Care, it gives me immense pleasure and joy to host today's event for this very special cause. At the onset, I would like to thank Mr. Serene and Alliance Francaise for sponsoring the venue for us. Thank you so much, sir. It means a lot to us. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our other distinguished guests, families, supporters, volunteers, members of the media, and all those who have been a part of our cause, who are probably not here today, but who have donated generously to help us organize this event today and also support the work which we are doing. Most of them have requested anonymity, so I will not be announcing their names. I'd also like to welcome our special invitees, Vishal Nityanand, who is the perceptor, multifaceted artist and filmmaker, whose film we'll be watching just now. Dr. Anshu Rotagi, he's here. He's a neurologist from Sir Gangaram Hospital. Thank you, sir, Vice Chairman of Neurology Department. Thank you so much for being here. Professor Anubha Mukherjee, an English literature professor at Delhi University and a caregiver herself. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Dementia is a global challenge, a neurodegenerative illness which impacts not only the patient, but has a profound bearing on the family members caring for their loved ones. Despite years of research, there is still no cure for dementia. Hence, it is imperative to educate everyone and support those who go through this long journey of caregiving for a person with dementia. In India, there are over 8.8 million people living with the illness, and only 10% of them actually receive a professional support or diagnosis. And this is because of awareness as well as stigma. They say, 70-72 ho gaya, aging ho gayi. It's a normal part of aging. The challenges our country faces are manifold. Lack of information, resources to support the family, trained resources, trained personnel, whether it's a carer, it's a clinician, it's a volunteer, or it's a social worker. Lack of awareness, resources, social stigma, and the assumption that this is a normal part of aging prevents early diagnosis of the illness. And as a society, I think we Indians like to be reactive rather than proactive. So we are very good at jugaad and solving the problems. At Samvedna Care, we have been working in the area of dementia care since 2013. And we have been supporting families and patients through various services and programs we offer. We know firsthand what a family experiences through their journey of caregiving. There are many caregivers here today. And our programs include cognitive assessments, therapies for dementia patients, programs for caregivers to educate them, train them on dementia, as well as to help them with their mental health, because a caregiver often becomes the invisible patient. Over the next couple of hours, we hope to shed further light on this very important cause through the very special film screening by Vishal, directed by Vishal, and starring an Indo-European cast, Life Flows On. This will be followed up by a panel discussion where we have our distinguished panelists, and all the audience members will also have an opportunity to ask questions from the panelists. Before we start the film screening, may I please request everyone to put their mobiles on silent and kindly do not take any pictures of the film or recording, as it is a copyright violation. I hope you enjoy the film and have a pleasant evening. We are here to help you with anything. Our volunteers are here in the hall and outside in case anybody needs any information. We'll be happy to assist you. Thank you, everyone, and I will request to get the film screening started. So I hope the audience enjoyed the film. I think it was a story very warmly told and really covering the realities of what we see when families are stuck with this issue. So very warm welcome to all of you again. And Vishal, the first question is for you. Congratulations on this film. My question for you is, what was your inspiration for this film?
Hello, good evening. First of all, ma'am, thank you so much for having us here. So, I used to live here, in House Khas, R Block. And just, in front of our studio, there's a Lakshman Public School park, if people may be aware of it. So there was a one wandering man character, So there's similar kind of character, he used to wander around in that park. And he would never sit down. So one day we got some news that that he died out of he was wandering and he would never sit down, and if he has to eat something, he will by wandering only and by standing only he'll eat something. He'll never sit down. So then he died, and then when we investigated the story, then we realized that he actually was from some village in MP, and he came to AIMS. His family took him to AIMS, and then they realized that actually he's suffering from Alzheimer's. So family asked that what will happen. Said that there's no cure वगैरह नहीं है. There's no cure of it. So they shunned him. So from that AIMS he came to that the same road, and he got stuck in a circular this thing. So when I got the whole thing, then I started working on it, and then I found the work on that data and all that. And then I realized at that time it was around 3.7. The census नहीं हुआ था, ma'am. The last census, actually, unfortunately, sir, we don't have census still now. The actual census we don't have, but according to 2010 census, that time the data was around 4 million people. But now it's around 8.8 million, I think.
Yes.
So then I started initially making documentary. Then I thought that someone from very senior from our bureaucracy told me that why are you spending your time and energy on non-productive people? So then I became more prompt to do this. I should make a film out of it, right? Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll like to move to Dr. Anshu now. So as a physician, I'm sure you meet a lot of families and patients. So what are the most common challenges families bring to you? And the other question is really about how can we detect dementia at an early stage? So
okay, so being a neurologist, we see a lot of patients who come to us with dementia. Usually the family brings them that he's forgetting. First thing I want to make very clear that previously what was happening, this is about over the last 20 years ago, that most of these patients were being seen by psychiatrists, and that is very, very unfortunate because it is not a psychological issue. And so what was happening is that a lot of these patients, still now, a lot of these patients, the family take them to the psychiatrist. They don't realize that it's a neurological disorder. And I think he has put it very, very aptly that it's a neurological condition. I think that is something that we really need to understand. And if I'm able to get that point across, my job would be done. So we have to understand that all of us, as we age, our body tends to give away, our hair become white, we tend to lose teeth, the skin becomes wrinkled. The same way the brain also degenerate. So it's a degenerative disease of the brain. And as the age increases, if you had seen in the movie that at the age of 65, the numbers are less. As we go into 75, 85, the numbers would go away. So and in India, we have a large aging population because of our longevity has increased. So see more and more of these kinds of patients. So usually it is a family who brings the patient. They say that he tends to forget things. He is not able to carry out his activities of daily living. I think the most important thing for dementia, which has been defined by different categories, is that when a person who has a loss of cognitive abilities, that means he is not able to remember things, he is not able to do small things, like wearing his clothes. They wear the shirt inside out. Or for a housewife, she is not able to do the cooking, she is not able to make the roti, or she is not able to do the cutting. And some of these patients tend to lose weight. I think the patient he was referring to, because the brain, we don't realize God has given us such a marvelous organ, and we don't take care of it. We always talk about the heart, but unfortunately nobody talks about the brain, which is the main organ which drives us. It helps us see what we are seeing. It makes us, and brain is important. Brain is what is making us alive to the world around us. It is important. So I think, a lot of these patients, they are lost. The family loses. Sometimes even they get lost in their house. They do not know where the toilet is. Yesterday only I saw a patient, so he went to the toilet and he didn't know how to use the toilet, how to use a flush. So for the family, it is very, very difficult. So basically, most of these patients come with depending on different stages of dementia, they come at different points of time. But now, fortunately, the awareness is increasing. People, when they find out that they have a loss of memory or something, they do tend to bring us. And so that is, I think, as awareness is increasing, it's important. So we have to realize it is not a psychological issue. It's a neurological issue. And the only thing good about, previously it was thought that Alzheimer's doesn't happen in India. But I think that was a misconception. We are as much as same as the Western population. Alzheimer is in India. It's very much an Indian population. And in the times to come, the figures were projecting 2040, 2050, the numbers are going to be humongous. And unless we are prepared for that time, we are going to have a tough time. Because the families cannot take all the time, because most of us are working. We have small nuclear families. So both the husband and wife are working. So nobody is there to take care of the elderly people. And I think that's where Samvedna would come in, really, to create awareness and to care and take care of these kind of people.
And I would request you to speak a little bit about, the pharmacological treatments available, and what are the ways in which we can do early detection of dementia?
So as I said, the important thing is that the history, which is important, is that the patient is not able to take care of himself or herself, not able to carry out his activities of daily living. So even small things like using a spoon or cutting a vegetable or using the washroom, they're not able to do. So detection is very, very important. So early detection is the key now, because now fortunately we have some tests which are soon going to be available in India, which are blood tests. But I will talk about a little bit later. So the first thing that when we deal a patient, we suspect that the patient is having Alzheimer's or dementia, as the term is used synonymously, is a neuropsychological evaluation. A neuropsychological evaluation is only a bedside evaluation where we ask the patient certain questions. And we have certain scales through which we can say that the patient is going towards dementia. And there is a stage in the early part of dementia which is known as minimal cognitive impairment or mild cognitive impairment. That is the time that we can treat these patients. So fortunately, the drugs are available to us. I think they had shown a video in the beginning that Alzheimer's pathology has two parts. One is the amyloid plaques and second is the neurofibrillary tangles. So now we have drugs which can clear these amyloid plaques from the brain. So it is important to create awareness, because if we have awareness, people will come to us much earlier. If they come to us much earlier, we can possibly treat them at a stage where the disease can possibly be reversed. So it is said that after the age of 50, we start losing neurons much faster. So the earlier we catch this patient, the better it is. So awareness has to be created. We have drugs. We are soon going to have some of these drugs available in India. Right now they're in the US. They're very costly and they're available only in few centers. But as the time goes by, I think these drugs will going to be cheaper and they will be available to a much larger population. And so there come the importance of blood testing. So there are going to be blood tests which will help us in diagnosing this patient, confirming the diagnosis. The initial diagnosis is mainly clinical. It is made with help of bedside examination. And once we have a blood test in place, I think that will make life very easy. And so the earlier we treat them, the better it is. So I think awareness is the key word here.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Anubha, this question is for you. You have been a caregiver to your parents and
Yes.
in-laws, and
Yes.
you saw the film. I'm sure you could relate to many parts of it. And could you share your experiences and what was similar in what you experienced as a caregiver and what you saw the young lady go through?
We don't have films really as references for this disease. When I started out and my father got diagnosed, Black was the film. And Black was a fictional fantasy film. And much later, Father or Still Alice are very powerful films on Alzheimer. It takes a lot of courage to watch these films. So me and my husband, who is also a caregiver with me, we have also Dr. Parinita with us. Her husband took care of our parents. And as luck would have it, two of our parents. It started with my father being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then my mother-in-law got Parkinson-related dementia. So what are the chances that in a family, in a nuclear family, we're just two people, we don't have any siblings, and neither do we have children. And among our four parents, two of them had dementia. So, I want to talk about the invisible caregiver. My mother was the primary caregiver for my father, and she was floundering. And I got in similarly floundering. Dr. Rohtagi doesn't remember me, but I have made visits to his clinic too. So, and we wanted some doctor to tell us, ye nahi hua hai. So there was no acceptance to begin with. My father did very well. 2010 he got diagnosed, and very early detection. And the medicines helped. And he could carry out good life for 3-4 years. And he lived this entire 7 stages or 8 stages of Alzheimer's. It was very tough. We are very different people today as caregivers. And it's financially draining. It's emotionally draining. There are no infrastructure and support that you're talking about. There is so much of stigma. And initially, even we could not share it with our family. It took us a long time to normalize with our relatives and with our friends, and they just disappear into thin air. There are no support systems. In fact, me and my husband, we got almost locked in an elderly care facility with nurses, helps, and the kind of, it needs a village to go through this. And I'm so thankful to all the doctors who were on my speed dial, and my friends would laugh at me that, you, on your contact list, you only have doctors, but thanks to all the doctors of the community who took us through this journey. It has been a very tough journey, and we are both emerging from it. My mother passed away. Caregivers take a brunt. The statistics are huge in America. We don't have statistics and data like what we have in America. The unpaid hours of work, you lose your job, you do not contribute, you are incapable of contributing to yourself, you do not have a life of your own at all, because, again, there are no supportive structures. Somewhere along the way, I started Googling desperately, I found Archana. And Archana had also recently started out then. We need a lot of hands to hold, really speaking. And it's not easy. I wanted to do a small little quick survey. How many of you have been a caregiver for a dementia patient? Wow, a loud round of applause for them. You know, if you have not been a caregiver for a dementia patient, then you will be the dementia patient yourself. Half of the people, that is the harsh reality of this room, that half of us are caregivers and the other half will perhaps get dementia sometime there. That is the cruel truth that we need to realize. And as the doctor was saying, we do not take care of our brains. We take it so lightly. One of the things is, how do you prevent a disease? How do you arrest the progress of the disease? There is no cure. It's fatal. Though it's age-related, but we know now you can be struck with it even at an early age because of the kind of lifestyles we lead, because of the kind of things we do with ourselves. How do I prevent this? How do I stop the progress? How do I look after myself? How do I, stay sane? I thought I was going insane because I became the primary caregiver while somebody had to earn, for the house. So, and typically it's a, gender-related thing where women land up becoming the caregivers, and it's very cruel for them. But I'm so thankful that we have emerged as survivors. I was telling my husband, people say, I'm a cancer survivor. I think we should start saying, I'm a caregiver, I'm a survivor of an Alzheimer patients and dementia patients. And now that we have survived this, and we are different people, how do we give back to the community? How do we hold hands? And we need to make this community stronger. We have a large population of aged people and issues with dementia. Thank you so much for asking me to speak today.
Thank you, Anubha. Thank you for sharing. So if you have to give one advice to caregivers, what would it be?
Have to have boundaries with the patient, have to create buffer systems. As I said, we landed up eventually because we had no infrastructural support of that kind, of having a caregiver center where you could leave your parents or you could travel. And we needed to travel, we needed to get out and have some sanity. I remember I used to take my mother out because she got the brunt of it, and she used to say, Zindagi to waisi hi hai, sabki chal rahi hai. And your life flows on. Reminded me of her so much today. And many caregivers have stroke, heart ailments, and my mother started showing a lot of ailments, and she passed away 2 years ago. But she used to say, सब कुछ चल रहा है, तुम्हें चलना है, तुम्हें जाना है, तुम जाओ, तुम निकलो यहाँ से. So having a me time was very difficult, creating buffer systems, support systems where you could leave the patients and you could just go out and do something. You paint, you jog, you run, you write poetry, you sing. I love the fact about this film that there was so much of painting here. You listen to music. I would sing with my parents. They sang till a certain point of time and then they stopped singing. My father stopped recognizing me. My father had stopped recognizing his wife. When you are in a family, it's even more difficult. And my doctors would say, clinical detachment. You are not going into your father's room in the morning and then immediately you visiting your mother-in-law. Go somewhere else in between. So I would go to the mall, buy a coffee for myself, and I would sit down for hours looking at this brightly lit neon windows and take solace, take heart. Sabki chal rahi hai zindagi. Meri bhi chalni hai. And somebody is dependent on me. So please take time out for yourself. Whatever you do, take time out for yourself. Do some happy things with them and with yourselves.
It's very profound, very profound. Thank you so much for sharing. Jayashree, you are a dementia expert, and you are also leading the programs at Samvedna for Alzheimer's. So, how can we support patients and families with non-pharmacological interventions? Doctor talked about medication and other things. Would you like to share?
Thank you, Archana. At the outset, I just want to start by congratulating Vishal on the movie. I mean, throughout the movie, I think I saw so many stories of so many patients that I've worked with across the years. And it's just profound how you captured so many glimpses in such a short span of time. It was just amazing. And I think when we talk of, so a doctor mentioned that there's obviously, there's been decades of research looking for a cure to stop or reverse dementia. And those initiatives must continue because that's ultimately what we want. But despite these decades of research, unfortunately, we still don't have a cure. And I just want to kind of draw a parallel between something which we're probably more aware of, which is diabetes, right? So we have blood tests for diabetes. We know that when we're diagnosed with diabetes, we know there are options available in terms of medication that can help us manage the condition, right? Unlike dementia, which is a neurodegenerative condition, diabetes can be managed across the life course. However, non-pharmacological interventions play a critical role in management of diabetes, and that's where you can't eat sugar, for example, forever and expect that medications will work. So you have to modify your lifestyle. You have to adopt practices that enable you to live a better, healthier, and more enjoyable, happier life. So that's the role that non-pharmacological interventions play. And when we look at non-pharmacological interventions, as a clinical psychologist, there are interventions that we use directly with the patient, and then there are interventions that we use with families and caregivers. And the third bucket, which I'll just touch upon, is the non-pharmacological support strategies which the community needs to get involved with. So in terms of the intervention strategies that we use with patients, what do we do? So one of the things that we do very actively at Samvedna is provide cognitive stimulation therapy. And there were glimpses of that through the movie. We stimulate, through the senses, we stimulate various parts of the brain. The brain has a very unique capacity called neuroplasticity, unlike any other organ in the brain. For example, if you chop your arm off, it's never going to grow back. But the brain has an inherent capacity, which is neuroplasticity, which means that if there's a part of the brain that's damaged and you stimulate it, to a certain extent, that brain tries to build new connections. And the basis of cognitive stimulation is that we try to push by providing this stimulation to the brain and hope that that's going to happen. Why that's important is because just recently, actually just yesterday, there was a World Alzheimer's Day report that was released, which is a survey. And that showed that 31% of people living with dementia across the world stopped going out, right? So there's social isolation because of the condition. 43% of caregivers stopped socializing. Socializing is a fundamental way in which we're constantly stimulating our brain. We're doing that here today. Right? And I don't know if we had people who joined us who were living with dementia here. I wish that we did. And we know it's difficult because we don't have that community support. But that's where the community comes in. That's where we need to create these infrastructural systems where people who are living with dementia can continue to live their lives the way that they did previously. And in terms of the family support, Anup has already spoken about the kind of support. We help caregivers understand what they can do. It's overwhelming. So we help them navigate these challenging decisions. I'd just like to end by saying, you'll see some of our volunteers around here, and I think you would have seen our photo booth, which said, I'm a dementia sathi. So, that's what we're really looking for in terms of a community response. If you see somebody who has these signs and symptoms, I think it's up to each and every individual to be responsible, to not be judgmental, to be supportive, and to actually educate others around that. So that's the reason why we have that. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So before I open the question to the audience, I just want to ask Dr. Sir, do you have any patients in India who walk up to you and say, I may have cognitive decline, please test me?
Yeah, I think we do have patients who come and walk to us, but these are usually young individuals who come to us that I have memory issues and all that. They usually have anxiety or depression. You see, I think you must have heard a couple of days ago, there's a young girl who lost her life working for EY. So the kind of life that we are going through is very stressful. So we have a lot of these young people who are working and who come to us that we having memory issues, So I think the life is becoming very, very fast paced. And as ma'am had said, that we need to take time out for ourselves. We are killing ourselves. So I think we should not kill ourselves. Life is to live, not to kill.
Thank you. Yeah, I am actually, I and Jayashree talk about this a lot, that, when will be the day that there will be a person in their 50s or 60s walking up to us and saying, I think I may have symptoms, and can you do a diagnosis? So I was curious to know if that age group ever comes to you for a evaluation.
We do have sometimes
Okay.
patients coming to us,
Okay.
but normally, as I said initially, it's usually the wife or the husband.
will come.
I had a doctor colleague working in a different corporate hospital. So he brought in his wife, saying that she's about, I think, just about 60. So, when we examined her and we did the neuropsychological examination, we found out that she has a significant amount of dementia. So the people are now coming. I think as awareness is increasing, people do come to us, and I think and we diagnose them. But unfortunately, what we can really offer right now is oral drugs, neurocognitive rehabilitation, and all that.
Yeah, thank you. So, anybody has any questions in the audience for any of the panelists? Can you raise your hand? Yeah, can you please pass the mic to them?
In the movie, you showed Dr. Arora. He was a caregiver, and Madam told if you are not a caregiver, you will also succumb to this dementia. He helped so many patients, and he is himself a doctor. How he succumbed to this dementia?
Doctors are also human beings. So you see, the kind of dementia he was talking about was DLBD, which is again a degenerative disorder. It's very rare actually. It's something between it has combination of Parkinson's as well as dementia. It's a very rare dementia. The other thing I want to make you understand that dementia also has a familial basis. There's certain genetic markers which are also there are families where you have dementia, and some of these families they have a young onset dementia coming. So genetic factors are also important. So ultimately, I think that is also plays a part in the dementia you have. And doctors are as much prone to disease and much more prone than any other brothers because of the kind of life that we lead. Although we really tell you that you take time for yourself and all that, but we all do have a very stressful life. And deaths in doctors are much earlier than the longevity of life is less in doctors. Yeah, we have the working hours.
Can I say something? So, the connection is not so simple that, the doctor treating dementia will get dementia. It doesn't work like that. But yes, as Dr. Rohtagi said, it's a very stressful job. I remember saying, one of my doctors telling me, जिस तरह से तुम वीडियो भेजती हो ना अपने पेरेंट्स के, थोड़े दिनों में मैं अपने वीडियोस भेजूंगा तुम्हें. So, you crowd me, with this, kya kare. So I can understand. And then, we changed this and we would go to doctors and we said, have you had a break? Did you go on a holiday? So, I would ask the other questions. Did you take time out for yourself? Did you go out with your wife, see a movie? Very important, we look after our doctors. They are precious.
Hi, good evening. I have a question. So I'm a caregiver. I've been a caregiver. Lost my father last year. I wish to know, has COVID in any way affected and accelerated the cause of dementia inpatient, because I saw my father. He had Delta. Even we were in the same room in an hospital. One bed, he was on the main bed. I was on the side bed, going through Delta variant. He was all fine, but suddenly when we went back home, when we leave from the hospital, I saw him going back to his age when he was in his 20s or 30s. He would speak about all that, and it continued for 4 5 days. I was the only one suffering myself, giving care to him. He was 86, 87 that time. And can you emphasize something about
So
the
I
COVID?
think, so I'll tell you.
I mean, I've been feeling that I've been a lot memory loss, being a caregiver.
No. So actually what happened during COVID times, we would have a lot of these patients coming in and who would just be totally lost, totally bewildered. So in COVID times, if anybody was coming to the emergency, unless it is a pregnancy, would think it is COVID. So, and a lot of these elderly people, they would come just with an acute confusional state, totally lost, not able to find their way, not able to do anything in the house, having incontinence like for urine and stool. So we'd have a lot of these patients. So patients who were already borderline, like we will talked about minimal or mild cognitive impairment, they would suddenly become down. And even after treatment, they would not go back to the previous functioning levels. So COVID, although it used to affect the other, it was also a neurovirus. It would also affect the nervous system. And we have had patients who had worsened during COVID, and we have a lot of elderly people who had COVID, even though survived. During that COVID time, they had a lot of problems, encephalopathy. Even in my family, we had issues. My parents.
We lost him last year after second time he had COVID, and doctors told him he has encephalopathy.
So even my family, my parents and my parent-in-law, they were all had COVID. They all had a tough time. They were all in the mid-80s, so they had a tough time during that time because they were kind of having a delirious state.
And last thing I was saying, thanks Anubha, that you wish I had heard you a year or two before when I was a caregiver. We caregivers definitely require care.
Absolutely.
Because there is no one to take care of us.
Absolutely.
And we end up becoming sick. I started having high BP, and my doctor said, what are you doing? If you not take care of yourself, who will take care of your father?
Absolutely.
Somehow, as you said, even after he is gone, a year,
you need more care now.
Yeah, no, more care. I have become a heart patient myself, unfortunately, by now. But I see that, so this movie and this discussion is really great. Thank you.
Yeah, and we do have support groups for dementia caregivers, so you can also look that up. There's somebody here who wanted to ask a question. Can you?
Sir, good evening. I just wanted to know, can this disease be genetic? Can this be in family, in genetic?
So there is a strong genetic basis, and we have families where there is a familial Alzheimer's, and some of these patients do come much before the age where Alzheimer's is known to occur. There is a blood test which can be done to see if you're carrying that gene. It is a gene known as ApoE gene. If you have this gene, then you're likely to have more. It's not necessary that you will have it, but it increases your risk of having Alzheimer's. One important fact I want to tell before we move forward is that even if you have mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's, you need to control your risk factors. And some of the risk factors that make the dementia go faster is control of blood pressure, control of diabetes is very, very important. Because if you do have uncontrolled diabetes, uncontrolled blood pressure, your course is going to be downhill much, much faster. No smoking, stay away from alcohol, stay away from tobacco. And so these are important things that we need to understand. And so I think diabetes and blood pressure are very, very common. And so we need to control them to prevent your dementia from going worse.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Could you help us focus on the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? I understand dementia is a symptom of Alzheimer's. It is not equal to Alzheimer's. There are a lot of people who are suffering from dementia, but they may not have Alzheimer's. Could you just tell us a little bit about the difference?
So if you look at the whole picture of dementia, so dementia as we look as by definition is basically anybody who has symptoms where, especially cognitive dysfunctions, of which includes especially memory, then your difficulty in executive functioning, logical reasoning, inability to carry out. So important thing is that functionality goes down. You're not able to carry out your activities of daily living. So that is in small sense how do you define dementia, where even small tasks may become difficult, like you will forget how to drive a car, go into the house. So this is how dementia is defined in a simple term, simplistic term. Now this dementia has got multiple factors. The commonest form of dementia is Alzheimer's. So the pathology of Alzheimer's is, as we were discussed in the video initially, two things. One is amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles. So this becomes the largest group of people of Alzheimer's. So when we talk of dementia, we synonymously talk of basically Alzheimer's. But other degenerative diseases, like he was talking about Parkinson's. So even Parkinson's patients have a Parkinson's disease-associated dementia, which is known as PDD. The treatment of PDD is almost same like of Alzheimer's, number one. Number two, then you have the Lewy body dementia that we were talking about. Then you have something known as a frontotemporal dementia, which is again a very uncommon diagnosis. In addition to that, you have other forms of dementia, like people who have had head injuries. Then you have people who have had strokes, which is known as vascular dementia. So vascular dementia is the second largest group of dementia. After Alzheimer's, so I was talking about this vascular risk factor, controlling your diabetes, blood pressure. So people even who have Alzheimer's, if they don't control their vascular risk factor or diabetes going haywire, the dementia is going to go much, much faster. So Alzheimer's pathology is the largest group. So dementia synonymously is considered to be Alzheimer's, but we do have other causes, and we should always try and look for a treatable cause. So the American Association of Neurology has suggested that if you have a diagnosis of dementia, you should try and rule for a treatable cause. The treatable causes means a vascular, that means a stroke, a tumor, a head injury, or something known as a normal pressure hydrocephalus, thyroid disease, in India, B12 deficiencies. So these are some of the things that we are supposed to look for before we classify these patients as Alzheimer's.
Hi, good evening. Firstly, Vishal, thank you so much for portraying this very sensitive subject in such a manner. You know, for many of us who are not really, who haven't seen this thing happening, I think this portrayal is very sensitive enough and strikes the right chord for everyone to, you know, get a first level of awareness. I know organizations like Samvedna are doing their bit for that. And thank you, Dr. Anuba, for sharing your experience as a caregiver. I think besides the patient who would not be in a state to really realize that much because of their mental state of the impact of the disease, but what the caregiver goes through, I think not many people would be in a position to understand unless someone has himself or herself been through that. So thanks for sharing your experience so much. My question is to you, Dr. Rodgi. You know, Dr. Dasgupta talked about non-pharmaceutical impacts. Now, when there is a broad spectrum of drugs, and in neurology, you know, many such medicines are given for other ailments also. Plus, the gentleman here talked about COVID. I'm talking about the impact of other drugs and medicines which may be given for maybe cardiac treatment or other neurological things, or maybe even the COVID vaccination. You know, there were lots of news about that. It may be a politically sensitive subject, but have you observed, or are there any findings on the impact of other drugs and, you know, these ones on the acceleration of dementia in patients?
Absolutely right. I think I was going to touch upon, and I left it. So I thought it would be a little confusing. So there's a certain group of drugs which can really make the dementia worse, and these are especially drugs which we use for sleeping, the sleeping pills. So drugs like alprazolam or atizolam, other sleeping medicine, lorazepams, all of these drugs, they can make the dementia patient worse. And so all of these are tranquilizers. Then you have the antidepressants, they can also make really life tough. Then you have the antihistaminics, the drugs which are used for common cold and all that. So some of them have a lot of sedation, like a drug like Finargan or Avil and all that. So they can make these patients go down worse. So drugs which have an underlying sedating property, they can always make the functioning of the brain go down much faster. Plus, there are certain drugs which are used for some the different kind of recreational drugs again can make some of these mental functions go down. So I think one has to be very careful while prescribing a dementia patient any kind of these kind of a drug, because as I told you that a lot of these patients were initially going to psychiatrists. Now psychiatrists are very fond of antidepressants and anxiolytics, so and they may be making these patients worse. So I think we have to be very careful in the choice of drugs which we are giving to these patients. Yeah, cetirizine can make you go, oh yes. It's because it brings a lot of sleepiness. Even a cetirizine can really make a patient really of a dementia go like a zombie. Uh,
also. So my question is, since we were talking about drugs, so I just wanted to have clarification on that.
If the steroid is used for an appropriate indication, it is definitely indicated. But if it is not used for an appropriate indication, then it can really be dangerous, because steroids themselves are mood elevators. So some of these patients of dementia have a lot of mood and behavior changes. So if it causes, because it's a mood elevator, it can cause some difficulty in controlling these patients, restraining these patients. So that will be a difficult time for them.
Thank you.
My question is also to Dr. Saab. Dr. Saab, you in your address you mentioned a thing that we take care of our heart, but we tend to forget to take care of our mind. So although my question is partially answered, one is socialization, we forget about it sometimes. One is about use of some drugs. But what else can we do to take care of our mind?
I think so what is now important is that one is that we should not be overweight. A BMI, increased BMI is likely to have a worse effect on the brain. Sleep, we don't talk about sleep at all. A sound night sleep is very important, because that is the time when the whole of the body and the brain, it tends to recuperate from what has happened in the day. It's a reparative time for the body. The third thing is the biological clock. Unfortunately, all the young generation is killing the biological clock, and that is to do with our corporate life. It's killing. A lot of them have worked on UK or American times. So once the biological clock is gone, you will have a very tough time. So biological clock, in ancient times in India, the biological clock was is that you would get up early in the morning and you'd sleep in proper time. And our circadian rhythm also works on this biological clock. And it's very surprising that I'm not a very big fan of Ayurveda, but I'm trying to tell you that even at that time, what they talk about, that getting up in proper time and sleeping in proper time. So that is very important, because our body circadian rhythm works, and sleep is very important. Then snoring, obstructive sleep apnea can make you worse. You need to control your diabetes, you need to control your blood pressure, and you need to exercise regularly. So even exercise or walking is important for the brain. And then you have to work. You should use your brain. The more the people sit idle, so you have to utilize your brain. Please do not take the brain for granted.
My question is to Mr. Vishal. While making this movie, how difficult it was for you to make the actors understand the depth of it, and how difficult it was to explain them that, since most of the people don't know about it, how difficult it was or how easy it was?
Ma'am, actually, this mother's role, who's suffering from Astig-Hosh, I selected her because of her mother was suffering from Alzheimer's. She was non-actor, so technical part we have to struggle with. But she was very sincere about the thing, and she still is very for the cause and everything. And then she has been through the whole journey. So that part from the patient's angle, like the person living with dementia's angle, that I had to ease down, from that reference background, and then I've taken a lot of workshop even for with senior people, and it was a creative challenge. But the thing is that with cinema, the problem with cinema is like we always try to glamorize and romanticize the thing, and personally I don't feel that we should romanticize the challenge like dementia. This is not a romantic challenge. It's not a romantic thing to romanticize the thing. That so I was avoiding that. That is another kind of struggle, but because the actors are actually trained to being loud and being all that kind of drama they do. But that kind of struggle, but it was creative challenge, not a technical. There is no technical challenge. It's a creative challenge. But other like social and the systematic challenge we face a lot. Like for one, this it's a positive film. You can see it's not a nothing about against the government or anybody. It's a typical film on subject. Anybody can. It's an honest film on subject. But for one health, there was one word called health minister, and for that we have to be this thing 17 times. And Mr. Palan Nilani was the chairperson that time. So that kind of struggle, that kind of things.
Dr. Parinita here had a question for you that Max didn't sue you for this when you showed that the doctor is not capable of writing a prescription?
Oh, ma'am, yeah, please.
Ma'am is sitting there.
Where is ma'am? Yeah, actually, ma'am, the thing is why I have chosen Lewy body's dementia, because Lewy bodies, sir described this thing, and that doctor played. One doctor is actually doctor, sir, Dr. J.D. Mukherjee. So I've convinced him to play that role. Can you believe this? And just to balance that, So we work a lot on these things, Yeah.
How you actually got the so-called policy makers sit in the room and somehow made them discuss it and talk, even though most of them were aged and they needed this kind of thing. They didn't decide, of course they didn't. That is how.
So I can actually answer your question with some research data, because we just in September we published a systematic review on community-based care for dementia in India. And there's a particular research procedure that we followed, where we looked at the research and identified how many research studies have actually been published to understand exactly what care is out there. And there's very little. So there's a huge unorganized sector that's providing care. There's no research on what exactly is being provided. In terms of the actual, the research-based care,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And one more important thing, ma'am, I just want to all of your attention on that. We are growing elderly population in India. So what we are doing about it, and that doctor was the case. The moment we are we have some, luxury with our lives, or we have some, we send our children abroad or whatever. Yeah. So we have nuclear family right now, So that was a background, and then this case Lewy body syndrome, because Alzheimer. When I was doing research, so I've been to a top people who are working on dementia in India on Alzheimer's. So I said, why you've taken this name Alzheimer's? So they said that because it's a popular word. So I said, you are a technical person, you should talk like a technical person, right? So doctor described the thing that dementia is a challenge. Cancer is a disease. There are many kinds of cancer, many forms of cancer. Dementia is a disease. It's a decay in our neurons, irreversible decay. That we are trying to struggle with. Pharma companies are coming up, drugs coming up, or maybe we will find or we will not find. Second thing, ma'am, we are seeing on early onsets of dementia in India. I have seen one patient recently in Mumbai, 41 years old. Yeah. So the thing is, it's a real challenge,
Yeah.
So in that context, I have tried being sincere about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have.
Since you made the film, we've seen how the caregiver has been struggling for this, a center or some help for the mother. I just wanted to know how far have we come since?
in terms of awareness or in terms of infrastructure since the film
Awareness, certainly, ma'am, you have been
no,
like
her struggle, the way she's been struggling to find a place. So do we have something like that now?
Yeah. So maybe I think Jayashree can answer that. Yeah.
Can I answer that? Ma'am, it's a very important question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, of course.
So the thing is, since that, like in 10 years' time, when I started the research, like it's almost 10 years. So we have the awareness kind of thing. The dangerous thing in India is like we take a subject and we not only in Bollywood or anywhere, everybody is a master of subject. Like sir is a technical person, I am not a technical person. There should be a clear discipline about that I am not a technical person on that. So unfortunately in some segments, some parts that is going on, but certainly there is more awareness. Systematic change we are still looking for, like we actually need an ecosystem. We have largest, as I said, the largest elderly population, we don't have support system. And ma'am is working, Dr. Jayashree is working on a very important, very interesting thing, that she works on the community response system. So in dementia kind of disease, ma'am, like we are not, suppose we are not making like Netherlands, dementia village or all that, but we can we sensitize our communities, in our colonies or in our communities where we live, about dementia, or about, for example,
Can maintain the independence, like how there should be is there a way how we can stretch the timeline to kind of keep them independent, so that they don't need the some caregivers or support? Is there a way that can be?
So I can actually answer your question with some research data, because we just in September we published a systematic review on community-based care for dementia in India. And there's this particular research procedure that we followed, where we looked at the research and identified how many research studies have actually been published to understand exactly what care is out there. And there's very little. So there's a huge unorganized sector that's providing care. There's no research on what exactly is being provided. In terms of the actual, the research-based care, the majority of research is coming from the southern parts of India. There are centers like NIMHANS where there's phenomenal research that's going on, and they're doing a lot to, develop support for dementia. When it comes to the northern part of the country, there's very little, and there's another pocket of research which is happening in the west. So there's literally, like in terms of actual evidence-based information about the sort of infrastructural support for dementia, you can count it on your fingertips. So this was a study that we just published in Current Opinion in Psychiatry. And one of the reasons why I've done this, as Mr. Vishal was mentioning, is that I'm looking at research to understand how we can put across to policy that we need to do much more from a community level. So there's actually evidence around this.
The research part and the systematic change, support systems, we need to make the whole ecosystem we need to build.
Sure. So I also have a question to.
Yeah, I think this will be the last question, because we need to probably vacate the.
Is there a way how the patients can maintain the independence, like how there should be is there a way how we can stretch the timeline to kind of keep them independent, so that they don't need the some caregivers or support? Is there a way that can be done to enhance?
Sure. Yashri, you want to answer that?
So I'm going to, because we're going to get thrown out of here, I think, but in the interest of time, I'll just say that it's very, so the first thing is timely detection. The earlier, the more time you have to plan how to engage, how families can engage with the patient to remain independent. The later diagnosis it's more of crisis intervention and management. There are a lot of ways in which we can support. I mean, there was a couple of things that even were shown in the movie, like simple things like the sticky notes, right? These are actual interventions that are very helpful. It was beautifully portrayed in the movie how the person living with a dementia refused to accept that help. And one of the things that is really important to remember is, when we talk of these statistics, we have 8.8 million people living with dementia today. This is likely to double by 2050. In 2050, I often, tell people, how old am I going to be in 2050? I'm part of that statistic, right? Means that I have to be open to accepting help. I have to say when someone tells me you need to take medication for this, I need to take it. If someone says you need to wear a diaper, you have to wear it, right? So that's the kind of change that we need so that people can remain independent. And we've done work with people in community, to give a very specific example of how someone can remain independent. We had a client who would want to go shopping every day. We sensitized the shopkeeper to understand that this person has dementia and worked with them so that they could continue to do that activity which gave them joy. So there's various levels at which we can work to engage, to encourage people to remain independent.
If I may add to Jayashree, GPS trackers these days, telephones have them, but they tend to throw it. But if you have them on their bracelets, etc., they don't get lost. A lot of Alzheimer patients are not found, they get lost. That's the data we are not talking about. My father went missing and I thought I will never find him. Yeah. But it's a terrible thing and it's a fact. People are not found with Alzheimer's, they get lost.
And just to add to this, I mean to say...
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Vishal sir, for making such an enlightening movie. So my question is to Dr. Anshu sir. So recently, 1 year ago, Alzheimer, an 18-year-old youth. So is it possible in future that a young generation like us may end up suffering from this, because it can be very dangerous?
I think by the time it happens, you will be much older.
That's so humorous.
So I think aberrations do happen, but they do not make the rule. So I think things do happen, a lot of things do happen. So I think don't go by aberrations, go by the general rule. Okay?
Thank you so much.
One small question. I have a question. So, over here. I'm here.
Sorry, I can't. Okay, sorry, yeah.
So the kind of life that we live these days, it's like, fast-paced, 9 to 6 jobs and all. So is it possible that, this also leads, takes us closer to this situation, and how can we keep it at bay?
I think most of us are burning the candle from both the sides. So that includes me also. We are all part of the society. You see, we all live in the same society with same people. So I think the mobile phone has made our life not only easier but also more difficult, because the mobile phones, the emails, the Facebook, and you can connect with. So even if you're on vacation, people, your employers don't leave you, people don't leave you. So I think we need to really. It has to be individual level. It is not something that I can tell you or force you. It has to come from within. You have to realize that what is going wrong with for us and how can we do it. Even if we do realize, sometimes we're not able to do it because of a lot of reasons. So I think all of this does happen. It takes a toll on our body, and it will take a toll on our mind and the brain also. Because what we were doing initially in 15 days, now we're trying to do it in a week's time. So I think we need to stop burning the candle from both the ends.
I have a habit of speaking, continuously in class, so I am constantly wanting to speak and add. So sorry. I was just saying that mental health care, let's foreground this for all of us on an everyday basis. Mental health leave, I am talking about it in the university every day. I am talking about parental leave and caregiving leave, so that I can go back to my job and not lose out on that. We get maternal leave, we get childcare leave as women, but as women we don't get caregiving leave. So I lost out a lot of money there. So I lost out a promotion, etc., etc. So please, foreground mental health care in whatever way it works for you.
Thank you, Anubha. And
extend our gratitude to all of you for joining us today in making World Alzheimer's Day. I would like to thank our venue partner, Alliance Francaise,